You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show hosted by Doug DeVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology. Wow, we have a very special guest this week, Dianna Booher, author of 46 books, and she's still going at it today. Welcome, Dianna, to our show today.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Doug.
You know, one of the books that I found that had a really big impact on how I was communicating is e-writing. I know you've got it in the digital format, but I actually had to get the printed copy because it's one of those ones that you just want to keep, tearing open and looking at. Can you share with us real quickly the transformation that's taking place with all the different technology and all the different tools and all the way to communicate? What are some of the trends that are out there that you think that, let's say, executives or sales leaders need to pay close attention to?
I think the transformation really is the plethora of formats that we have. Once you have a message, you can't just sit back and think, okay, I did this. In staff meeting, I put the message out there, or I sent out an email. You have to think about how many different ways do I need to put it out there, because people are no longer geared into one way to hear the message. I mean, they're listening to it while they're jogging, and then they're on text, and they're in so many different ways you have to get the message out. And that's the transformation. You can't just think in a one-dimensional format.
Yeah, especially as we go to text message and even instant messaging, shorter forms of communication. Many times we might overlook how important it is to pay attention to not just what we're saying, but the relationship we have with the other person. What would you suggest some ways on being very tactful in the way you communicate rather than just putting something out there and hopefully that sticks?
Well, you have always got to be thinking what's on their mind, not what's on your mind. And all of us, of course, are interested in what we're thinking. But you've got to be thinking the backstory. What's the context of your message? And as you think about it, consider what the body language is that you're getting back from your audience. And most of us have so much on our mind as an executive. We have so much going on in our mind that we just don't think about how they're going to apply that message and how it applies in all the different situations that people come from and what their frame of reference is. So I think if you can test the message on different people and see their reaction before you put it out in a big way. And think about it all the way to the top. Think about the White House. Think about different governments and how they leak messages to see what the reaction is before they put it out there officially and for real. The purpose is to see what the reaction is going to be before they say it officially. And we could take a lesson from that, from every politician. I don't care what side you're on, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatever. People do that. They say, let me test it in a little way, and that's what they're doing. Let me test it in a little way to see how people are going to react. And if you did that with clients or vendors or strategic partners to some extent before you really, put your foot out there in a big way, with employees even, you could see how people are going to react and tailor with a little tact. It changed just one word. If you just change one word, it might make all the difference in the world in how that message is received.
Well, yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, because I know in some cases, someone will ask me for a message that I can just, quickly rattle off on a text message and then, boom, it's gone. But you had mentioned pay attention to how other people are willing to receive it and also test. And a lot of times we can't test on our customers, especially if they're the ones that are writing the check. So in what situations would you recommend testing? I know practicing on your families first is always a good way, but what would be some ways you would recommend to test better?
Well, always, if you're going to make a big speech, something that's really important, you want to try the story. If you're telling a story, try the story, at a party, at the dinner table, at the lunch table with your family, of course, but with a group of colleagues. If they laugh, sometimes they laugh in a different spot, but perfect it before you try it in a big way, if in an all-hands meeting. But particularly, you want to pay attention to negative messages. Anytime you have bad news, you're going to have to lay off a group of people. You're going to have to tell a vendor, hey, we can't meet your deadline. You wanted this project done by X date. We're not going to get it done till Y date. The price is going to go up. You know, those standard negative bad news messages that we have to give. You're not to an employee. You're not performing up to standard. Those are messages that you need to actually plan. In my latest book, What More Can You Say?, I talk about how you have to change somebody's behavior. You can't just walk in and start preaching to them, you know, this is what's got to be done. You know, you're not handling that division like I want. You have to, and I suggest actually on a negative, anything that could be negative or perceived as pushing somebody to do something, to actually draft the structure of your message. To plan, this is going to be my opening line. This is how I'm going to move through that conversation. And I suggest, rather than making statements, to actually ask, to go through it with questions. You know, like, how did you think that situation went? And then maybe the next question is something like, how could you, what do you want the outcome when you're working with partner B? How do you want that to go? And you sort of lead them to self-evaluate. To evaluate the new vendor relationship. And you plan those structure points in your conversation, because if you just go by the seat of your pants, chances are you're not going to end up in that conversation where you thought you'd be, and then it gets rough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I know that in some situations where it's so easy to get that message out, you're suggesting actually, even though we can respond quickly, to really be thoughtful and take the time on how we're going to respond, because how they might interpret it might be completely different from what your original intention was, right?
Yes. Yes, I actually, on a sensitive message, to actually write your opening statement, to structure, what will I say first, second, and if those turning points are either statements or questions, and I prefer questions, it's more important to plan your questions than your statements. And then your closing line, what will you say to end the conversation, so the next time you see them, there's not this big elephant in the room that we speak about, so that you can reestablish that relationship. So in those situations, when you're trying to change somebody's behavior, you're trying to change their action, plan it definitely. It should sound off the cuff, but it shouldn't be off the cuff.
Yeah, no kidding. And even as we look at different preferred methods of communication and also generational preferences, I know that a lot of folks will say, well, gosh, technology is really for the Gen X, Gen Y, when I could say that's actually farther from the truth. What do you see as some of the trends where different communications, different generations, is that even an issue at all?
Definitely, I think it's an issue, because the need for feedback. We've heard a lot about the millennials wanting feedback because they've gotten feedback all of their life. I think that everybody has wanted feedback throughout their career, but we've just been able to maybe wait a little longer. Boomers have been able to wait because they haven't gotten it. But what we term feedback is different. I think boomers termed action as feedback. Yeah. In other words, you get the promotion, you get the job, you get more responsibility. Whereas the millennials want actually that as well, but they absolutely want any kind of feedback, just whether it's verbal feedback or not. I think that's important. And everybody wants, obviously, positive feedback, but just noticing that they're doing something right and being engaged. Engagement is feedback, asking for opinions, asking what do you think about something. Sometimes it's been, for a long time, maybe too long, one-way communication, downward, right, as opposed to going in all directions. And I think that's important.
Yeah, one of the things as far as the latest technology and where I can see you and you can see me, but different from the phone, where phone was just it was just two-way, auditory. Now we have the visual component where we can get new types of feedback. How important it is for leaders to take a look at this more visual form of feedback, so that that communication loop is closed and not kind of left open for people to interpret.
Extremely important, extremely important. And also, the older generations have also been used to a hierarchical communication where you didn't go around your boss, didn't go around your managers. But now with social media, you're open, you're connecting with people at all different levels in an organization. And so there's not as much attention to that. And that upsets a lot of people. So I think you have to just start thinking of lateral communication and linear communication in all different directions. And now, you know, we've had that saying, what you see is what you get. That's no longer true, because what you see is not what you get because of the visual. People get edited, they get polished, and what you see is not what you get. Many times people, before they go on the camera, have been coached, polished, trained, edited. And when you, let's say an executive goes online and they've been scripted, they've been coached, and what they see when you meet them in person in the lobby for your Christmas party is just not the same person they've seen presenting or talking at an all-hands meeting or in the staff meeting. And so the employee begins to wonder, or the client, if you're inviting prospects into your organization, is saying, who's the real person here? You know, is it the person I'm seeing when I go out to that meeting on site 101, or is it that person that I see on that video? And so what you see is what you get is just sometimes seems insincere, too polished. And so you need to make them one and the same. If you want to come across as genuine, real to the person, to your client, to your prospects, your goal as an executive, and particularly if you're in sales, needs to be to merge those two personas. The one that's on camera when you're doing a webinar, a webcast, an in-person meeting, a viral cast, and the person they meet one-on-one.
Sure. Well, it's a whole lot different from giving a presentation to a whole group full of people versus trying to look at this one little dot inside of a camera in order to have that conversation. So, you know, you'd spoken about having script where things are recorded. It's a lot more professional, clean cut. And now with the use of mobile technologies to live stream, now leaders really have to be kind of on demand, or, you know, have their talking points you know, solidified, you know, be ready to go anytime.
Right, and the ability to think on their feet as well. When you have a lot of word fillers in your response, and you don't really know what it is you're trying to say, and you hem and haw in a meeting, that can be forgiven. People just remember what you said the next day. They don't remember so much how you said it. But when you're on camera and you do that, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Dianna, I wish I had hours and hours to ask you more questions. You're definitely a wealth of knowledge and somebody who I highly respect and appreciate everything you've done to even help me kind of get myself going with this business. So thank you for being a part of the show today.
Sure, Doug. Enjoyed it.
You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show, hosted by Doug DeVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology.
Are you ready for more meetings in less time with less expense? Screen to Screen Selling has answers. Screen to Screen Selling is the fastest way to increase sales, productivity, and the customer experience. Screen to Screen Selling is a mindset before it becomes a skill set. Let's look at your beliefs.
Or even like join.me.
Receive access to upcoming episodes of the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show, special announcements, and insider resources. DeVitri.co/screen to screen. Order Screen to Screen Selling from 800-CEO READ, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Books A Million, and McGraw-Hill Education.